Our story begins a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Dun, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, da, 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 dun. Well, actually in a place called Palestine. This story has been told for more than 2,000 years. It's a story of how a special man named Jesus came to be born. There are so many stories told about Jesus when he was grown. Stories about how he helped people who couldn't see. Stories of people who were sick and got better when Jesus hugged them. Stories about children who were sad and lost, coming to Jesus for love and care. These are the stories we tell all year. But tonight, we tell the story of when he was born. The story starts with Mary and Joseph, who lived in a town called Nazareth in a province called Galilee. Joseph was a carpenter. He was big and strong and very brave. But best of all, he was kind. Mary was young, but she was important to God. She was beautiful and smart and adventurous, but best of all, she was also kind. She and Joseph were going to be married. They were looking forward to starting a family of their own in a town called Nazareth. One night, an angel came to Mary and told her she was going to have a baby. Mary was nervous and afraid. Mary felt she was too young to have a baby. She hadn't planned on children for at least another year or two. When she and Joseph had a house and a donkey, maybe a few chickens and some sheep, but sometimes things don't go as you expect. Sometimes a first child comes early. But the angel reassured Mary and said, "Fear not, for the baby is a special gift from God who will grow up to be the Savior of the world." The Savior is the one who speaks God's words to the people. The Savior shows people how to be kind, how to love each other, and how to help people so that we have a fun and healthy world. The angel told Mary that her baby was going to be that Savior. So Mary, who was strong and independent, who could have said no, decided that she would have the child that would be God's gift to the world. And soon, she found herself pregnant. Now at this time, there was a very powerful ruler named Caesar Augustus. He was kind of like the Donald Trump of the ancient world. He thought he was really important. And to show the world just how special he was, he wanted lots of fancy houses and lots of fine clothes. He wanted to eat the best food and drink the finest wine. He wanted the prettiest wives and the smartest children, although that wasn't quite working out the way he had hoped. And because he didn't have a real job, he had to find someone else to pay for his fancy lifestyle. So he decided to collect money from all the people who lived in his kingdom. And just to make sure that nobody missed paying the taxes, he made them all go back to where they were born so he could keep track of who lived in his empire and make sure that they paid. Now Joseph lived in Nazareth, but he was born in Bethlehem. And because Mary was going to be his wife, he had to take her with him. Joseph was a little nervous, but he asked Mary to jump on his donkey, which was really hard for her to do since she was really pregnant and about to have a baby. I think it was more like Joseph pushed Mary up on the donkey, and so they began their journey. When they got to Bethlehem, Joseph went to every hotel and asked for a private room so that Mary could have her baby, but there weren't any. That made him frustrated and upset and kind of short-tempered. Mary was tired and plenty cranky. You can ask your mom what it would be like to travel for days on a donkey while you're pregnant. This was a recipe for disaster. I don't know if your mom and dad ever fight when they're tired and cranky and way too pregnant, but it happens. But just when it seemed all was lost, an innkeeper said that there was a barn out back where Mary could give birth in privacy. Some people call it a stable. where all the animals lived. I don't know if you've ever been in a barn, but it's kind of smelly. It's not very clean. And Mary was about to protest and insist that Joseph find another spot, even if it did cost a small fortune to stay at the Bethlehem Bellagio. But just then, the contraction started and the baby was on its way, too late for anything else. So they went, and they made a bed of straw there amidst the donkeys and sheep and cows and chickens. Some people say that there was a little drummer boy there too. That's not really in the story, the way it was first told, but it's okay to add things from time to time. And then, in the middle of the night, Mary gave birth to a baby. She named the baby Jesus, which means God saves, and Emmanuel, which means God is with us. And she wrapped him tightly in a blanket, and she laid him in a manger, which is just a big drinking bowl that people used for their animals. Now, you might think that this is where our story ends, but it is only the beginning. Because when God saw that the special gift had been born, God was so excited that she sent a choir of angels to sing about the baby and how special he was. God is kind of like your grandma. She gives the best hugs. She spares no expense when it comes to celebrating Christmas, and she really likes to brag about her wonderful children and grandchildren. So you might think a host of angels to celebrate a squirmy little baby might be a little extra, and you have to be under 30 to understand what that means. But to God and your grandma, it was just right. Now, most people were asleep, so they didn't see or hear the angels, and boy, did they miss a great concert. But some shepherds were working the night shift and had to stay awake to make sure that the wolves and the bears didn't eat their sheep. So they saw the angels singing, and they were terrified. They vowed never to have another drink late at night on a hillside with their buddies while they were supposed to be watching sheep. But the angels told them, "Fear not," just like they told Mary when they visited her. I guess people are often scared when angels appear. That's why the first thing the angels always seem to say is, "Fear not." But they told the shepherds that they had good news, that God's special gift had been born in Bethlehem and was in a stable and lying in a manger. So the shepherds hurried with their sheep to Bethlehem, and miraculously, they found the place where Jesus had been born. So, the manger was getting pretty full. But like they say, there's always room for one more. Now, there was a big conference out east in the center of the known universe, a place kind of like Toronto or New York, where all the advisors to the royalty were gathered to see what was new and happening in the night sky. Let's call it Magi-Con. Royal advisors do a lot of staring at the night sky, and when they looked up, there was the most beautiful star that they had ever seen. You know how people are curious about the stars? They knew that a star this bright meant that a king had been born, and they wanted to be the first to pledge their undying loyalty to this king. So they packed up and got on their camels and bought some expensive presents, and they headed west, following the star right to the place where Jesus lay. Now, you probably figured out that it was going to take a while to get all the way to Bethlehem, and the wise ones actually got to Bethlehem. And when the wise ones actually got to Bethlehem, Mary and Joseph had found a house to rent. And Jesus was already starting to walk, but that's another story. We celebrate the coming of the wise men on January 6th in a holy day called Epiphany. You'll want to make sure you come back for that. The story of the Magi was written by someone named Matthew. The story of the shepherds was written by a guy named Luke. But it would ruin Christmas if we didn't have wise men in the stable with the shepherds and the drummer boy, and sometimes when you're really sacrilegious, even Santa kneeling before the baby Jesus in the manger. So let's pretend that they were wise men like Aladdin, and they had a magic carpet big enough to fly their camels, and they got to Bethlehem that very night. So that night in the manger, the angels and the shepherds and the Magi worshiped the new baby by giving gifts and singing songs. And that was the story of Jesus at his birth. They all knew right from the very first day that he was a special gift from God. And so are you. Jesus grew to be a great storyteller and wisdom teacher. He taught people how to be kind, even when they disagreed. He shared God's dream for the world that we could all live in peace and welcome all the little babies, no matter where they live, with all the joy of that first Christmas. And so wherever your Christmas takes you this year, remember to carry that dream in your hearts wherever you go.